Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining us. Erika, welcome back to the stage.
Thanks.
So I guess, Sam, you got into some really technical concepts there, but I don't know if my mic is, sorry. But I think, ultimately I'd love to discuss, the meaning of sustainable progress for everyone at the moment, kind of starting off. So what does sustainable growth as a business in Web3 mean in the current moment? Maybe Erika, you want to kick off with that? How is Adidas innovating?
Ask the brand who's perfected hype how to be sustainable, right? But honestly, it's a very good question. And it's something I have to ask myself all the time because I left the CMO role of Adidas Originals to go lead the Web3 studio for Adidas. And one of the questions our CEO fielded today was like, hey, is the metaverse over? Are we divesting? Someone actually sent me the clip because there's these headlines on Rolling Stones now that's like, hey, NFTs are dead. The space is over. The way I think about it is this. This is a brand new technology layer that's going to take time, right? It's going to happen in almost a lasagna of layers, if you will. Now, you like to use that metaphor because I think it's important. Culture and creativity is going to come on top. And I think the hype cycles that we've seen time in, time out, anytime new adopted technologies are coming in, people get emotionally invested, they get excited about it, the bubble bursts, and then we're kind of like holding the bag, being like, where do we go from here? I think the hype cycle in this one is no different. NFTs have kind of come, people were using a lot of speculation, they jumped in the game, they probably got burned. We got too carried away with crypto and investing and connected to a lot of salacious and let's just say bro-y behavior, which I also think needs a rebranding. It was just bad, illegal behavior that needs to go away. The grifters need to go away. The cash grabs need to go away. And we need to get back to first principles. And I think as much as we can continue to talk about first principles, which was how to build a decentralized, democratized, and easily accessible way for people to create a new life for themselves, whether that's in designing apparel, in-game skins, avatars for themselves, DAOs that then can invest in projects that they care about as a collective. That should be something that we continue to focus on and allow these hype cycles to create kind of the waves on top. Because just the thing I'll say, there's so much noise and so much of the media is incentivized to create salacious headlines that's going to drive these clickbaits because we're in this attention economy. You just have to stay focused on first principles, and we're continuing to do that at Adidas, and it's an ongoing education.
I have to say, I got really excited with you being on the panel again, and I forgot to do introductions. So, Andreas, would you like to introduce yourself, and then we'll go around the circle, and then move back?
Yeah, of course. So, my name is Andreas Schemm. I'm Ecosystem and Operations Director at Human Protocol, and we basically are here to build new economies to enable people to build their own job markets in a fair and transparent way, which is why we are a blockchain protocol.
Yeah, hi again, Phillip from Polygon.
Oh, was this an introduction?
My name's Andrew. I'm the CEO of a company called Delphia. Delphia at its core is two parts, a data DAO and a hedge fund. And we are building the data DAO in service of the hedge fund because we believe it's the best use case for our data if we're all going to participate in its economic value.
Cool. And I jumped into answer your question, but it wasn't a question, was it? I'm Erika W Sneyd. I'm the General Manager and Global Vice President of Adidas Three Stripe Studios.
And I'm Sam. I just bought you for 20 minutes. And I'm the Web3 Technical Lead in EMEA for Google Cloud.
So, Phillip, I guess I wanted to ask, Gen Z are wanting to move beyond that kind of transactional, one-sided engagement you mentioned. To what extent is kind of sustainability of a business and its ethics kind of a deciding factor when they choose a Web3 brand to maybe invest with? And how can, we think about sustainability in that context of younger?
I think nowadays when you hear the word sustainability, we all think right away about ESG, but it doesn't need to be, right? So I love the point that Erika was making, and I think it also fits with what I'm seeing in the market. Right now, we are only left with the companies that did their homework over the last couple of years, that actually thought through, I mentioned it earlier, how the technology actually fit into their business model. So it's not a one-off, it's not a PR stunt. And maybe we can even bring some interaction here on the panel into it, because I listened to an interview of your colleague Vlad the other day, and I think what's super interesting here is that he shared that one of the biggest learnings for Adidas was something that you didn't even plan or expect in the beginning, which is that you have now this great community of ALS holders that are basically the most engaged fans of the brand. And what it brings with you is that you guys now have a focus group of the most engaged customers, which is, I don't know, have you planned for this? Or is it just something that, because everything is so new that grew organically, which I think, back to the question, is something super sustainable within the brand.
So I think it's interesting we're talking about data and we're talking about this because there was no data, but I had a lot of instinctual connections that showed me there's a ton of passion that was going on within Discords and with communities that were really, really caring a lot, to the point that they're putting hundreds of thousands of dollars into these projects, purely replacing the unknown with hope. And I hadn't seen something like that because you're not really getting something tangible yet, and the world isn't yet world building around that value proposition. And so I don't know now that I can tell you how we've backed into that being a KPI or how we've been able to say what it is, but all I say now is passionate communities, especially active communities, is where we see built-in fandom and hype. And if you can incentivize those people to be in your business model with you, there is built-in fandom and hype, and they will do your bidding and your brand advocacy, your awareness, your engagement building on behalf of the brand. And so we harnessed that in the beginning on intuition and instinct. Now I think the challenge, and we got this challenge from our CFO, is, well, how do you measure that? How do I know that your profile picture, Alts by Adidas holder, is more valuable than, let's say, someone who's a passive buyer of running shoes or someone who's going to come in and purchase products in the seasonal window? We're now still trying to figure that out because we're all in this company battling for funds, battling for attention, battling to get into the next World Cup and Olympics campaign. So I think that's something data, if you're interested in data and you have access to cloud platform, those are the sorts of conversations brands are having in real time to try to quantify that.
So Andrew, you're involved with Delphia and data DAOs. Can you tell us a little bit about data DAOs and maybe how it links with community building and education in this space?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think most people are probably familiar with the context of data in advertising, and there's been a number of reports about how our data is worth very little in that context, maybe a few $100s a year. I'm sure we've all read those. It gets more interesting, I think, in capital markets writ large. And the challenge is you just need a larger aggregation of data in order to derive some value. So maybe 1 million people co-locating their data or 2 million people. But if you sort of cross that threshold, you pretty much can displace an entire industry that's under the name alternative data that right now powers Wall Street and the like. And that industry is probably going to be about 135 billion by 2030. So there is quite a pool of capital available for our data, but it does require self-organization to get there. And a DAO is, it's a modern day version of a co-op or a programmatic version of a co-op in many ways. I'm not trying to say they're exactly equal, but in many ways they are. And so it does have a lot of interesting properties to offer if you were going to sort of build against that.
Mm-hmm. And Andreas, with Human Protocol, it sounds like that's a new way of people sourcing work. How is the company managing to do that sustainably in a way that's fair and ethical for workers?
Yeah, absolutely. And to continue that thought, basically, DAOs enable something that we do as well, and it's collaboration at scale, right? And that is what we do. We enable collaboration at a scale we have not seen before. We have over 700,000 signups. People are thirsting for more things to do, for more things to contribute and to collaborate on various projects. And again, this is why we're here, right? We want to have even more projects with even more ideas, shaping the future, defining the path forward, and they can do so in a decentralized way, because that's really democratizing access, democratizing data, democratizing ideas, and we enable this as a framework, basically, so that everybody can build their own idea and see that come to life, so that they can basically, do that in a sustainable way. We've seen projects, for example, in carbon emissions as well. Reputation on chain is a big topic because sometimes, well, there's a lot of fake in reputation, right? And fake in reviews. And blockchain in its nature and in its core is, like you rightfully said, about trust, transparency, and that can help. But then certain big players might not be ready to hold a wallet or something like that. So I think there's still more in terms of the roadmap, what we need to put up there. And there needs to be some people that work on reputation, that work on different parts. But that is the great thing. If many people come together to collaborate on this project, we can actually be sustainable, both in thought and sustainable in terms of carbon emissions. Because, it's going more and more towards that, right? With ESG, with the taxonomy. And I believe that blockchain can play a big role for audits on chain, reputation on chain, contribution, everything is possible. And that is what we're working on. And that's what we are hoping that we can provide.
And how can decentralized networks within businesses help involve users and consumers in sustainable decision making? Is that something that we're kind of ready to put out to users to help them choose what happens next?
I mean, I have a strong opinion that so spiritually in the long run, yes, I think that's where we're all aiming. I think we've been through enough trench warfare at this point to understand the limitations of that in the present moment. Being part of a DAO, or if you've been part of a DAO, period, at any point in the last few years, you'll have an appreciation for how difficult governance actually is. And so I would say it's extremely hard to get everybody on the same horizon of focus, let alone ensure that the activity level is sort of representative of the populace, right? And so I think it does offer the chance for involvement and participation and some degree of governance, which I think is think of governance almost like a dial. And I think over time, as we sort of root out some of the challenges, we'll give away more and more governance in a decentralized way.
And then I kind of want to build on also where you're going with it. I think, and I don't know if there's anyone in here that represents exchanges or marketplaces, but when I presented our business plan to our CFO about 2 years ago, secondary royalties was a big chunk of what was going to keep us afloat. That has fundamentally gone away thanks to the erosion of secondary royalties, which is a great incentive to getting consumers, creators, to using this technology, to utilizing, let's say, the exchange of NFTs if they're going to be doing secondary resale of clothing, of sneakers, of using maybe a more sustainable way in which you're going to do resale of the sneaker market or other sorts of products, because fashion is a huge consumption. Just the category as a whole is a huge, let's say, violator of consumption. And there are great ideas, but none of those ideas are ever going to come to bear unless we fix the royalties contracts and we make sure that that comes back into the picture. I just do not think we'll be able to do it alone on social contracts and handshakes alone inside the incentive structures. So I think the tech needs fixed. And I also think the social contracts and teaching people how to utilize chain and why is also something we can continue to do in our comms and messaging around the programs that we build.
So Sam, you spoke a little bit about Google and some of the ways that interests moved into kind of whole entire teams around Web3. And I wondered, what does it take for a big company like Google to innovate in a space and remain kind of agile when new technologies come as quickly as they do?
Yeah. So most people in Google think that Google is as agile as a small startup, but it's not at all. But it is more agile than the size of the company it should be, if that makes sense. So we do spend a lot of time in making quite large sacrifices in the effort of innovation, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's a very big place, and there are pockets of like extreme innovation and pockets of not very much innovation, as you would find anywhere. I mean, at the moment, actually, you can imagine, I guess, there's a lot of innovation around AI, and generative AI as well, which is all over the news, obviously. They've done very well to allow such a large company to be as innovative and fast-moving as it is. but it's not as fast moving and as innovative as everyone inside Google actually thinks it is. So,
And what role do you think, kind of, like you had, you're rewarding startups and bringing in new organizations. What role do kind of up and coming players and also maybe people who don't know the space so well, what role can they play within a company to kind of change things?
Yeah, I mean, I think more and more Google needs to have a bit of a position of being a steward. I don't want to sound, I really don't intend to sound arrogant here, but like a mentoring role and just a sensible, like involved in policy, involved in protocol, these sorts of things. I think it's very, very important for Google within the Web3 space and in other spaces, especially the AI space actually, where things are moving very, very fast and actually no one has been around very long at all. Google's been around only for 25 years, but that's probably one of the best that we've got actually. And we need to just be careful and slow. And I do think more and more Google is having this kind of trusted steward position. And I actually really respect Google for that. And I think we're going to need to see it a lot more going into this sort of new AI wave that we're about to see. I think a lot of it has actually kind of been created by us, with us, this sort of like open source movement was chiefly driven by Google. Again, something I'm very proud of, but now it means that we've basically democratized access to a huge amount of technology, and we've created a pattern whereby everyone else also releases the technology that they create, which is really great for innovation, but actually possibly quite dangerous for these things being used wrong, especially when these tools get more and more powerful. So yeah, I think Google's got a massive role to play, and I'm proud to work there actually.
Good, I'm glad to hear it. So on that point of AI, what kinds of initiatives, and this is one for the whole panel, what kinds of initiatives do you think are needed to set the field of AI on a kind of more sustainable trajectory? Is that regulations from guidelines within companies? Is this more from high up a body? What kinds of things are you seeing that you think might be the future of regulation in this space?
In the space of AI, was that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I sort of covered it, I suppose, but yeah, regulation, I'm very, very behind. I think it's very, very important, actually. I think also we need to make models smaller. They're way too big, and it's just the compute power required is just ridiculous. We need to spend much more research effort in working out how we can make smaller and smaller and smaller models so they can run on people's phones, this sort of thing. That's not really possible at the moment at large scale. And yeah, I think we just need to make sure that we work together and don't race for market share too much, because that is when the dial is going to get pushed. Ethics and other things are going to get sidelined or shortcutted in a race for market share, and that's when things go wrong.
Yeah, and AI to me, in one word, is just going to enable efficiency. Efficiency. And I think it can be an awesome companion and assistant, to use Google words, to creators. And I would like to see us rebuild Web3 values again, where we start back with creators and supporting creators and the active communities and fans around the creative process and creative endeavors, because I think we need artists and designers. We need to have difficult conversations, and there's a great way to do that through art and through design and through style and fashion. And I think we need to rebuild those connections again through not only the smart contracts and technology. And then when it comes time and we can find product market fit again, I think Google's an awesome platform for scale. And to your point, like, that's how I think about Google, is scale, and AI as efficiency. But they also have a lot of great fundamentals for how to incentivize creators, like the YouTube business models that exist. So I think us as brands can look at that, and you as technology creators should be building for artists and creatives who don't want to have to think about the tech. Like, don't force them to think about the tech. Force them to think about their art and creating and utilizing your platforms to build cool shit that gets people to care about coming into the space.
I think my 2 cents would be, and plus one on everything you said, that we just see another normal adoption cycle, right? So it fits with everything that I've heard here. I think it's normal that a company like Adidas, which is very culture rich, moves first and is early in the space. It's also normal that then a big tech player comes to the space and gives some structure, right? Yeah. So I think whether it's AI, whether it's crypto, luckily we just see a cycle happening here, and hopefully when we come back next year, 3 years, we'll just be further along in that cycle, and I'm excited to look forward to that.
I want to highlight one point, and that was there was this big summit in the UK recently, and while it is great, and I think regulation should be welcomed because frameworks are always helpful, also for investment, so that they're safe to invest and there's not some crazy stuff happening that everything shuts down suddenly. There was a lot of fear mongering as well in terms of, oh my God, everything is going to shit and everything is going under and there's Skynet is being built soon. So I think there needs to be a balance between regulation, yes, but also between the chances that it has. And some people fear, for example, that, oh no, AI is taking away all the jobs. I don't believe that will happen for most of the jobs, because a lot of times you still need a human in the loop, because a human has the creativity, it can spot things in a different way. So I think it's rather a shift where you can see that humans can provide, can guide, and can get supported, but still need to review, to validate, to verify, to audit. So it's more of a transformative thing. And I think that's something that sometimes is very black or white, and either it's fear or it's everything is going to be awesome. Yeah. And I feel like there's a lot of nuance to it. As with crypto as well, there's regulation coming there as well with MiCA, etc. So I hope that every regulator just continues talking to all the people driving things forward in this space. And yeah, I think then we have a very future-proof outcome that I personally am very excited for.
Great. I think nuance and excitement is a great way to end this panel. So thank you so much for taking the time today. It was a great way to end the day for us. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the event, and thank you, audience, for listening. All right. Thank you.